morning. When asked to share my refugee story as it relates to finding a sense of home, I thought it would be easy enough because the countless times I had reminisced the story in my mind were at family gatherings. But this process of recollecting 46 years has been quite the emotional journey. Sadness, disappointment, hope, joy, and fear. But despite the gamut of emotions, the process has reinforced for me the importance of not letting the resettlement story of Southeast Asian refugees be forgotten. We were forcefully displaced by the U.S. war and its aftermath in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. My family was considered one of the lucky ones as we migrated from one refugee camp to another for 4 months, compared to others who remained in refugee camps for years. We resettled in Tacoma, Washington in August 1975. We had no choice but to make this place our home. I started kindergarten soon after, the only Vietnamese person in the classroom, and the experience was quite traumatizing had it not been for Mrs. Frida Valukas, my all-time favorite teacher. She cared for me with a little extra TLC as I could barely speak English. I learned quickly and was reading at the 2nd grade level by the end of kindergarten. Teacher's pet? You bet. But as we all know, the most important aspect of school for any child is to find friends and have a sense of belonging. In 1st grade, Kimberly Mae Jones, the most popular girl with the prettiest dresses and perfect ringlets in her pigtails, came to my defense when a boy in our class bullied me for being smart. "If you're so smart," he said, "then can you read this word?" He proceeded to write the 4-letter word in the air, and I fell right into his trap. After I said the word, he threatened to tell the teacher that I had just said a bad word. I was horrified and speechless, but Kimberly swooped right in and scolded the boy. After that, she and I became the best of friends, and no one gave me any more trouble. Kimberly and I kept in touch by writing letters after my family moved here to San Jose. We lost touch in high school, but I will never forget the compassion and friendship she extended to me. The 2 years that we lived in Tacoma had its struggle, but Kimberly and Mrs. Valukas made Tacoma home for me. Fast forward to high school in Eastside San Jose, junior year PE class. The events of that morning are so vivid in my mind that I could still feel the crisp, cold air of having first period PE. Our PE teacher decided that we were going to play football. Without any particular instruction on how the game was played, she divided the class in half, placing all the Cambodian refugee girls who could not speak English on one team, and the rest of us, me included, on the other team. I was horrified by the blatant racism that I was witnessing, and to add insult to injury, she mocked my Cambodian classmates and announced to the class that the loser of the game would have to run a lap. At the end of class, all the girls on my team ran inside to the locker room, while the teacher motioned at the confused losers to take a lap. Not understanding, the girls just stood there until I motioned for them to follow me. We ran the lap together as the teacher watched, perplexed by my actions. For all the graces I received during my transitions as a refugee, I was not about to let my classmates down. Incidences like these quickly reminded refugee youth, that living somewhere doesn't make it your home. We were left to navigate the complexities of life and racism in the United States as our parents were busy working to provide for the family. I had friends in high school who were here without their parents. My parents always made sure that there was a place at the table for these friends, or any friend who needed a home, if only for a meal or a place to sleep. They were just young adults whose family risked all for opportunity. The goal was for young adults to come to freedom, get an education, and build a life that would hopefully sustain the rest of the family when they arrived. But youth were met with no support system. Imagine being 16, navigating young adulthood with the added burden of carrying all of your family's hopes and dreams. Southeast Asian American young people, refugees like me, were disproportionately swept into gangs and violence. As a result, today, Southeast Asian refugees are at least 3 times more likely to be deported on the basis of an old criminal conviction compared to other immigrants. The most recent deportation of Southeast Asians, including refugees from war, was in March of this year. During this last week, I had many conversations with my parents to confirm our refugee story. I thought that I had already heard every account there was, but my dad shared a story that left me with so much hope. During the Vietnam War, my father was a commander in the Vietnamese Navy. He was stationed at Phu Quoc Naval Base, where many prisoners of war were kept. Every day, a handful of these prisoners were brought to my dad so that he could oversee various tasks for them to do. But he noted that they were all very young boys, perhaps 16, who had been likely forced to join the war effort for the Communist Party. Every once in a while, he would invite one prisoner into his office, where he offered them a more sustaining meal, sometimes a bowl of pho. He conversed with them during this time and addressed them as Con, meaning child. During the war, a landmine killed one of my dad's brothers while crippling another. But somehow my father managed not to let the violence take away the humanity that is the core of who he is to this day. Even a situation where it seemed unimaginable, my dad was able to offer compassion and dignity to those who were considered his enemies. In the words of Father Rutilio Grande, refugees, migrants, and asylum seekers simply seek a table shared in brotherhood, where all have their position and place. In my life, I have lived and witnessed this many times. When I yearned for acceptance, my friend Kimberly offered her hand. I hope my gesture of solidarity showed my classmates that we were on the same team, and my father showed hospitality to his adversaries during wartime. What we discover from today's gospel is the truth that when we share, we have more than enough. We need not worry that we don't have the means to share our home. Home is where the heart is, and it starts with an open heart where we only see the common humanity that binds us. Open our hearts, and God will provide. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Camilla De Firola, and I graduated from MIDI in 2016. First, I'd like to thank you all for inviting me to speak today, to hear my story as an immigrant and community member. I also want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, a time of appreciation and togetherness, while acknowledging that this day is also a national day of mourning for the Indigenous community. I can imagine how odd and difficult this past year and a half have been, especially coming into a new school and maneuvering these fresh connections through a screen. Though I want to make it clear that I'm proud of your resilience as individuals and as a community. Times have been tough, but we are here together, and I'm thankful for that. This pandemic has put us through a roller coaster of emotions, to say the least. You might have felt trapped at times, frustrated that you couldn't go outside because it wasn't safe. This might have brought up feelings of isolation, wishing you could see your friends or family members. You might have experienced a sense of worry or fear about what might happen if you did leave your place of shelter. Would your actions put you in a serious situation? Would it bring harm to your loved ones? I know these feelings are strong, and I have felt them myself at many points throughout the year. I want you to hold these feelings in mind because these are the very same feelings that many immigrants and refugees have felt long before COVID, especially undocumented immigrants. Because of the people we have met, not the apartments or houses we have lived in. In college, Los Angeles had become my home because of the love I felt from my peers and professors. In high school, Mitty had been my home because of the teachers, staff, and students that I have kept in contact with to this day, each contributing a sense of comfort, acceptance, and love. I felt most at home at Mitty during my junior year when I was enrolled in Mrs. Portillo's Ethics, Culture, and Justice course focused on El Salvador. I decided to apply for this ECJ course because many of the stories from the Salvadoran immigrants aligned with my family's immigration story. However, I was also nervous, knowing that many of my peers did not share this part of my identity with me, and I didn't know whether I would find myself isolated or uplifted. Throughout the year, we engaged in difficult topics of immigration and the history of El Salvador in parallel to the church's work of uplifting the voices of the Salvadoran people. After educating ourselves on this community and the challenges they had faced, we went to El Salvador and spent a few weeks in the beautiful home of the people we had read about. One core memory that has stuck with me is being together with the adults and children that graciously hosted us. Late at night, in their large recreational center. The evening was full of games, laughter, and love, as our Mitty community was welcomed with open arms into the home of these people that we were strangers to. At this moment, it didn't matter what language you spoke, where you were from, or what you had. What mattered was being together and accepting each other as we were. I felt my worlds collide as I was able to bond with my new Salvadoran friends in my native language, while also strengthening the relationships with my peers in this new experience, and even helping them translate to better communicate with our hosts. I found myself feeling accepted and at home when we were thousands of miles away from home because of the people with me. Cultivating this feeling of home isn't just inviting someone in. Going back to the COVID metaphor I mentioned earlier, providing a seat at the table for immigrants and refugees isn't just inviting them in to dine in when you know that there are barriers in place for them to come. It is practicing your love for others and breaking those barriers by moving the table outside so they can sit with you. Moving outside may feel like a sacrifice or bring discomfort, but it is in that discomfort that our genuine acceptance of one another is shown. Our gospel reminds us that even though we may have hesitations about these sacrifices, they are ultimately a necessary call of our Catholic teaching. On this Thanksgiving, I give thanks for the places I can call home. I encourage you to give thanks for places that have made you feel accepted and comforted. But in Mitty fashion, we know that is not enough. And so I challenge you to create that same feeling for the immigrants and refugees in our community, as well as your peers and colleagues. Thank you.